Hello, Internet, I'm Hugo.
And I am Jake, and this is a big day!
Yeah, today we finally get to talk about the new Star Wars, probably the most awaited movie since The Phantom Menace.
It was on our top 10 list way back in the day, and I think you were more excited for Fallout 4, and I was more excited for Star Wars, correct?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I think those both worked out. Moving forward, though, I would just like to say, this is going to be a very spoilery review. It's not spoiler-free, so if you want a spoiler-free review, go to someplace else.
Yeah.
Because this is not that.
So, the first thing I want to say, before we get to anything else, don't worry, it's good. It is a good movie.
It's very good. Not only is it good, it's definitely far better than any of the prequels, so don't worry about that.
Oh yeah, was that even a fucking question?
And I think it may be the third best.
The third best?
Maybe I don't know. It was really, really good because I just watched the originals and then I watched this.
Yeah.
I liked this a lot more, and I'm trying to see if it was just because it was new. And I haven't experienced it yet, so I'm going to go see it again, and we'll see what happens over time. But right now, for me, it's right below, like, New Hope and Empire.
I think I'd put it about there. I've seen it twice now. I saw it once in theaters and once in my home. And the longer I got from watching it, actually, I had the opposite reaction that I had to the prequels, and that was, the prequels, when you watched them the first time in the theater, you're kind of like, it was all right. It was pretty, like, you're trying to convince yourself that it was good, even though the
lightsaber fights redeemed each one of those.
See, here,
like, if you're gonna take something away from any of those, it was, we haven't seen cool lightsaber fights, so you know, I'll take it, and you know, it was kind of cool. But this one made the prequels look even worse, if I'm honest.
Yeah, because this made me go, oh no, you can make good Star Wars movies. Like, you can make fun movies that are Star Wars still. Weird. I would say, like I was saying, this did the opposite. When I first saw this one, I saw it and went, oh, that was pretty good. But the further away I get from watching it, because it's been, you know, since the first night it was out or whatever, I've actually grown to appreciate it more, especially after I watch it the second time. Because, no, it does hold up. It's a solid film. Now, don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's not amazing. It's not Empire Strikes Back. It's not, like, this big cinematic achievement, and I would say a lot of it's very derivative. It definitely takes a lot from the movies. It's a very safe sequel. J.J. Abrams was definitely saying, okay, see, we can do the Star Wars thing. Here are Star Wars tropes. And we can do them competently, and they did,
for sure.
So,
I would say though that it was definitely modernized.
Oh yeah,
it was absolutely. It works contemporarily, much better than I was worried about it a little bit. I had faith in Abrams, but I didn't want him to Star Trek it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because and I understand that Star Trek and his new series there is like it's a different universe, so it can be a little different, and that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. I'm not very excited about the next Star Trek, but Star Wars is kind of like, you gotta stay within a certain bubble for it to stay Star Wars, and they did a really good job with that.
I think part of that is that J.J. Abrams has never been a Star Trek fan, but he is a Star Wars fan, so I think his reverence for it kind of helped him stay a little more restrained. I will say that hurt it a little bit, because I feel like if there's some criticism I could do with the movie, few too many winks and nods, like the chessboard, that holographic chessboard.
I'll tell you, that was the one that I was like, come on, because they stayed on it for a little bit, and we're like, do you see it? Guys, do you see it? Do you see the chessboard? Remember from the thing, and then the Wookiee got mad? Do you see it? And it's like, yeah, okay, but they did it in at least a cute way. They did it in a cute way where Finn like bumps it, and then he's kind of like confused by it, like nobody plays this outdated game anymore. And I also liked that the I don't know, the reveal of the Millennium Falcon in its whole was a good one.
Yeah,
because they kind of call it a piece of shit, and then they have to turn to it and use it, and it is a piece of shit. It's so old, but it's doing fine. I don't know. I really liked some of the nods. This chessboard's really the only one that sticks out to me. The
other one that I it wasn't bad like the chessboard. It was just kind of like a eye roll, was when Finn is going through sort of this storage compartment of the Millennium Falcon, and he finds the training thing that Luke used in A New Hope that like ball that shot lasers at him and Obi-Wan.
But he just kind of throws it away.
No, I know. That's why that one wasn't as bad, because it was just like if you didn't know what it was, you might not even notice it.
I guess one more callback that maybe some people groaned about was Captain Phasma, and then they ask if there's, because Finn worked in sanitation, if there's like a garbage chute they can throw her down.
A trash compactor. Yeah, that was a little iffy,
so basically, this entire film is a New Hope, and that's not in a bad way. It is a little bit to its detriment, because I know Hugo doesn't like Starkiller Base, and I get that. I understand how you could be like, it's the same thing, but that's kind of how Star Wars has been. It's like rhythmic, and that's kind of the point. So part of me is like, I'll let it go. And also, it was much more destructive. Like, if your goal is to destroy the new government that they're setting up, because the point is that the Republic is like reforming the Republic from the prequels, I guess, a similar notion. If you want to destroy them all at the same time, you need a giant fucking weapon to do it all at once instead of this huge... So it would make sense that it's akin to a Death Star.
The problem, I think, with it was that it wasn't as imposing as... Two things. First of all, it wasn't as imposing as it should have been, because it went from being the size of a moon to being literally carved out of a planet. So you'd expect exponential growth in its destructive abilities, but it's not. It's linear. Instead of like, oh, it can destroy just hundreds of planets, it's like, oh, it can destroy 5 planets. So basically, it can do what the Death Star did, but a little quicker. And secondly, if they were going to do the Death Star idea again, I wish they would have subverted the idea a little bit, because I'm not against it. It makes sense. It kind of makes sense that they would try this again, because the idea is there. But they still, after 2 times the Death Star being destroyed, haven't learned, oh, maybe we should make some redundancies, so if one thing goes wrong, the whole thing doesn't blow up. I was hoping that what would happen is they'd try and do what they did at the end of New Hope, which they basically do. I mean, it's shortened, but there's even a little bit of a trench scene in this that's clearly a referential. And then they do blow it up, but I was expecting they'd try and blow it up like they did in A New Hope, but something would not work. Like, they'd be like, oh, it's not working. Anyway. They planned for this, because obviously it had happened 30 years ago, and then maybe the Star Killer base would kind of go into hiding, and then it would reappear in the next movies, and they'd have to come up with a more creative solution. I actually thought what would be kind of a funny twist, but kind of stupid. I'm glad they didn't do this, but I was almost thinking, oh no, are the Resistance now going to have a Death Star that they're going to use to blow up the Star Killer base? You know what I mean?
That would be interesting, because it would make them know better.
Yeah.
And I think you could have got this great thing. I wouldn't have liked a Death Star, but something similar might have been a cool twist.
Yeah.
But what I thought was going to happen if they were going to diverge, which they didn't totally, it is different, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, that it would have like a redundancy and it doesn't blow up or whatever, and then it kills the planet Leia's on and destroys the Resistance.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Not just the Republic, but also, like, now the Resistance is blown up, and now they're winning, and instead of an Empire Strikes Back, it's got to be, like, a Jedi Strikes Back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that would have been interesting, but I don't hate how they did this, because what I think they're doing is, it's been, so 1 and 4 go together, and now 7 goes with 1 and 4, and then so on. You have the prequels to the originals. And it's kind of been rhythmic. And that's kind of like what George Lucas has said all along, even though he failed as far as competency is concerned in script and you know, direction in the prequels. Still, the notion behind it and the thought behind it could have been a very elegant sort of web of these neat movies where they kind of have an ebb and flow, and like things, the point is, like, things are always supposed to happen this way.
Yeah. And
we're trying to balance, and it's just always a you know, knocking heads. But now we have Luke, who wasn't, like, there's no character that represents him from the originals.
Well, now
I mean, like, we have Rey that's Luke, clearly. We have Finn, that's also a kind of outlier. Poe is Han, and then we have, you know, other people that fill the roles from the originals.
Sure.
But Luke is an outlier, and Kylo did what Vader couldn't do. Because Vader should have killed Luke immediately, and then everything would have been fine, and the dark side would have been great, and he wouldn't have had a connection to the light side anymore,
sure,
making him, you know, turn on the Emperor at the end. Kylo did what Vader couldn't do. he killed his dad, who is his one connection to the light side. Although I would argue that also Leia probably is.
Yeah.
But he severed that tie, and now he's like Vader, who's never going to have a chance at redemption. I think they're going to tease at it one more time, and maybe, do some. But I don't think we're going to have an Empire and a Jedi when we in our sequels from this.
See,
what I think is they're teasing at, here's the same thing, and now it's going to just change course because everything's different now. Because people chose differently, and Luke is a thing now instead of... Like, he's not the Ben in this. Han was the Ben.
I'd argue he's probably going to fill a little bit of a Yoda role in the next movie during Rey's training. He's probably going to kind of be sort of a mix of Obi-Wan and Yoda, but it'll definitely be his own thing. Here's what I think's going to happen in the next movie, actually. I think, because at the end of this movie, which was a beautiful, beautiful ending shot, by the way, loved it.
It was really, really
and the
great.
way the music worked with it was excellent.
By the way, may I just add that this is probably the best score John Williams has ever done.
Really? Because I liked individual stuff, like Rey's theme was good, and
I just thought it worked, and it wasn't there when you didn't need it.
I didn't,
which was really good too.
I feel like I didn't notice it as much as in the other movies, though. Like, there was no... One thing I'll say about the prequels, bad movies, the score was always really good. Like, the Darth Maul fight, Duel of the Fates, great score. I didn't really get any new score in this that I immediately thought, oh, wow, that's really good. This works with this scene. It was all pretty underplayed for the most part. It sounded like Star Wars
I think that's kind of the elegance of it, though, because it was... Before, it was, like, really bombastic and campy. And now it's kind of like, it still has a lot of camp, which is very good because that's what it's supposed to have. But it also had these quiet, tense moments that the others didn't have.
Yeah,
which I thought was very. The only one I can think of is the quiet fight in Empire.
Yeah, I guess
Luke and Vader. Like, but even at the end of that, they like dun.
Anyway.
I thought it was very good. Anyways, go ahead.
So I think what's gonna happen is she's going to be training with Luke, and she'll be like, okay, we gotta go stop whatever. And Luke will say, no, essentially, this is your thing now, I'm not gonna do it. And I think that's how that'll go, and I think it'll very much reflect kind of Luke's training in Empire. By the way, I think this is a good time to point out, one of the criticisms people have of the movie is that they didn't like how quickly Rey got her Force powers, basically. But I wanted to point out, think about how quick Luke got his, too. I mean...
Yeah, no, Luke, he immediately saved the universe.
I know. He had like a week of training with Yoda to get his Force.
In the first movie, he didn't.
I know.
In the first movie, he has like Ben tells him things, and then he suddenly can block lasers blindfolded, and then he goes and defeats the Death Star without using a computer to help him.
Yeah,
like that's how quick Luke. Like no one remembers that. They always have this nostalgia bubble around him.
But I also think the issue with Luke took longer than I think it would have even normally taken, because remember, his big issue in training with Yoda was he couldn't believe. His issue was, like, he was trying to raise the X-Wing from the Dagobah swamp, and he said, I don't believe it, and Yoda's like, that's why you fail. But Rey, on the other hand, buys into the Force immediately. You get the impression that she's heard of the legends of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and stuff, and she's already totally bought into the whole Force thing, so she can more easily access her abilities, and there's nothing that she did that I genuinely thought was that impressive. She did very basic things. She did Jedi mind trick. By the way, did you notice who the stormtrooper was that she did the Jedi? It was
Daniel Craig.
Yep, Daniel Craig. That was kind of neat.
That was cool. And also Simon Pegg was the junkyard salesman dude.
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah. That's cool. I like Simon Pegg. That's funny. She reversed Kylo Ren's sort of mind-reading thing, but clearly it wasn't like she was overpowering him that much. She could resist and kind of dip into his mind too, but she didn't have a mastery over it. She ended up doing one Force pull, and then she fought Kylo. And another thing people say is, like, she shouldn't have been able to fight off Kylo. Well, Kylo
was bad.
Kylo
wasn't good at it.
I know, he got shot by Chewie, too, and Finn got one hit on him, even though I'm surprised Finn did as well as he did, honestly.
Well, no, but Finn was... Okay, Finn... People are having an issue with Finn, too, and I don't get it. He was born and raised a soldier, and you saw the other stormtrooper was also very adept at melee combat.
Yeah.
I don't understand why... Even though he was in sanitation, he was still a soldier, and on Captain Phasma's like detail and Kylo's detail in the very first scene.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how you can't be like, oh, Finn could be combat ready.
I think the issue was Kylo, for one, we find out his training isn't finished anyway, so he's not like a full
Right.
Sith or whatever they're calling him. They're not calling him Sith
anymore. He's a young
anymore.
dude too. I mean, he clearly is not confident.
No,
he doesn't have that Vader feel to him. He has this sort of petulant, like he has tantrums, like 3 or 4 of them.
He's done how Anakin in the prequels should have been done if they wanted to go
Exactly.
whiny.
That's what I was thinking when the first time I saw him like thrash around with his lightsaber and destroy that console. I was like, wow, that is what Anakin should have been like angry, but also very dangerous, but not this sort of brooding teen thing. Just have him be kind of like, just almost like bipolar, where he just will fly off the handle. And that's cool because he's kind of fighting, like the dark side is sort of this thing that kind of infects and it'll pop up just in flare really quickly and hard. And I think they played that really well.
And you'll notice he also didn't say, I hate them.
I hate them. I really, really liked our perspectives in this, and I mentioned it in the trailer breakdown we did. They did a really good job of making us give a shit about stormtroopers, and also, this is the very first time stormtroopers have been formidable ever.
Yeah.
Like, they're actually a threat this time, and they're not missing. They hit Chewie.
Yeah.
And they hit things and break shit and are good pilots. And like, did you notice that Rey was, they have this chase scene in the Millennium Falcon and they have like 2 TIE fighters and going around, and you expect the TIE fighters to slam into the fucking walls just like they used to. They don't. They have to actively beat them.
Yeah, and this,
you know what I mean? They're competent and they're scary. And also I liked in the very first scene, you see like they die and they're real people under there when they bleed. It's very important. And we get shots from behind them during battles. Also very important. I think that was played perfectly.
I was impressed with the fact that I understand why the First Order is actually kind of evil. Because if you remember in the original trilogy and you actually think about it, what did the Empire actually do that we saw that was like objectively bad? I mean, they blew up Alderaan, but they were trying to quell sort of a rebellion. But in this, you see immediately the First Order stormtroopers drop on that planet. They're murdering villagers to get to this droid. I mean, they did a good job of being like, no, they're space Nazis. They're really bad guys. Yada yada yada. So that was cool. That first shot, too, when it switches perspectives to that of Finn, and you kind of see it from the Stormtrooper's perspective, that was good, too. I know you were just talking about it, but very good. That whole first sequence was excellent. I knew after that first, 10 minutes, oh, this is going to be a good movie, because then Kylo comes down, and that's the first time you see him with the voice.
And also, by the way, I love how they mirrored A New Hope, the very first scene, like, where they take Princess Leia's ship, and they take her, and then they end up trying to torture her and shit like that. That was all mirrored very well. Like, Poe was Leia in this for a minute.
Poe didn't get a lot of screen time, but I liked
awesome.
him. I loved when he got put down in front of Kylo, and he goes, "So how does this work? You talk first, I talk first," and kind of a snarky.
I can't tell because of the apparatus.
Yeah,
it was awesome. He is going to be he's new Han, probably, for sure. He's awesome. Also, while we're talking about the new characters, Finn, at first I was like, wow, he's a weirdo, and then I thought, of course he'd be a weirdo. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Like, he's very he just wants to talk a bunch because now he finally can. His lines were really good. At first I thought it was going to be a little too much, but it just kind of works. When he's grabbing Rey's hand a bunch and trying to help, thinking she needs help and she's perfectly capable, and she's like, we don't have to do this. You can let me run.
My only problem with him is that his lines feel out of place compared to everyone else. And like you said, you could explain it because he had a very strange upbringing, being, indoctrinated into being a stormtrooper. But he feels like the jokiest character. He feels like a character who could almost be in an Avengers movie with his lines. Like, there's a joke where he goes, "Oh, you got a boyfriend? You got a cute boyfriend?" Like, that if I hadn't seen this movie, I would never think that's a line from a Star Wars movie. He speaks very much like a normal human in real world, not like a Star Wars person.
I totally think it works now, though, because, we haven't had a character like him before. He is a bad guy that turned good. Yeah. Because he, and that's a new thing. So he doesn't have to follow any of the other sort of
See,
I don't know.
I think
character tropes that we've been used to in these movies. So it's interesting to add that and make him quality, and also make him like quirky and different because of his like it's said without exposition, and I think I appreciate that.
Speaking of bad guys becoming good, I know you already talked about it briefly, and you think that it's Kylo getting rid of all the things connecting him to the light side, but I think what they're going for is sort of a reverse Anakin here. I think he's being tempted by the light side, and over time he'll eventually, by the third movie, become good. Or
I think it plays better, at least from obviously not seeing what comes after this. I think it plays better in my head if you expect that, and it just doesn't work.
Sure, I mean that could happen, but they're definitely teasing at something happening with that.
Oh, for sure.
Did you
they definitely are.
Did you notice Anakin is in this movie?
Hayden Christensen's in this movie?
No, Anakin is. You know the dirt basically he puts his helmet in. It took me a second to think, why is there
those
dirt?
are his ashes?
Those are his ashes, I think.
Are they really?
Because he has the Vader helmet, so he has Anakin's ashes, and that's where he puts his helmet.
I thought about that scene, and I was like, what is that? Why would he do that? And then they started talking, and I sort of just let it happen.
Yeah.
But it did stick with me a little bit. It was weird for him to... So he puts him in Anakin's ashes. He's a fucking weirdo.
He is.
I like Kylo. He's so cool. He's
good.
He's like this weird sort of, I don't know. He's trying to take on all this shit that he definitely is not capable of doing.
Yeah, I like
he's
it.
so not competent.
And when he does put on the helmet, it is intimidating. He's clearly more powerful than most random people, but as far as like people with the Force, he's not very good, and it works so well. And I love when he stopped that laser bolt in the air.
That was fucking rad.
And then Poe's reaction was good
coolest...
too, because he looked at it like, "What the fuck?" Like clearly this is not a thing that normal people can even do. And because because Kylo by blood, if not by name, is a Skywalker. Clearly he has the ability to have these amazing Force powers. He just doesn't have the discipline to use them correctly.
No, I thought it was really cool though how they used the dark side Force powers. Like when he sort of disarms Rey and her arm snaps back and kind of down so the gun isn't pointed at him, and then he's like asking where shit is. I thought that was just really, really cool. Like, of course he would, instead of force choking people, use it to restrain them and stop things and just sort of, I don't know, manhandle other people. That's such a good kind of use of that. We haven't really seen that before. It's always been sort of an offensive thing.
Yeah.
It's never been sort of a trap thing. Very cool. Very, very cool. Chewie, by the way, easily the best Chewie performance by far. Like, Chewie had actual character moments in this, which is so weird for me to say.
Yeah, I guess
he was so good.
In Empire, he did the whole bit with C-3PO where he was carrying him around on Cloud City and he had some stuff there, but it was good here. Yeah. His hair was weird though. He looked very clean.
His eyes were different.
He looked very clean compared to previous Chewbacca's, which I get. I mean, it's probably because they just have better ability to make it look cleaner. I assume a lot of it was before. I mean, it's just hard to keep a big fursuit looking nice all the time. I actually don't like it as much. I kind of wish it would look a little gruffer, because I mean, he is just going around the galaxy with old Han Solo.
I think it might though, because it's like he's gonna be a little bit depressed.
Maybe
since Han's dead, which by the way was a really, really great death, and Harrison Ford had wanted that for like 30 years.
I had that spoiled for me. That's what I was talking about, because Jake knew before I saw this. I had that spoiled.
Pretty much we knew that was going to happen, though. Like, I don't think after about 10 minutes and you use, like, deduction, you're like, process of elimination, which one's going to be the death? It's Han.
Oh, they hinted at it hard in the movie. You could tell it was coming. Like when Leia hugs him for the last time as he's leaving, and she's like, if you see our son... Bring
him home. Yeah,
it's like, oh,
okay,
he's done.
He's dead.
And then you see Kylo walk out on that catwalk straight out of Empire Strikes Back, and you're like, oh, yeah. This is it.
No, but yeah, no, it was a really, really good moment, though, and I like that Han, who has always been this sort of walls up sort of character, like, his very last moment is easily his most human.
Yeah.
Where he's just kind of touching his son's face, and then he dies. I thought that was well played by a guy who didn't even want to be there.
Yeah, I thought Harrison Ford...
Thank you, Harrison Ford, for actually, like, giving a shit when you did this. Because he hasn't given a shit in years. And I'm really happy that he decided, like, I'm going to act.
Yeah, he did it
because he could have not. He could have chosen not to.
Yeah, he did. He chose not to act in the last Indiana Jones, and look how that turned out.
Exactly. But no, I think he did an excellent job, and I'm glad that everybody got what they wanted out of that.
Yeah.
And I heard actual gasps in the theater, which was weird.
Yeah,
I did not think that was shocking.
No, but I guess some people don't know.
You know what it is though? Like, if you're gonna kill him, and it was obvious from the time very early on in the movie to me, but definitely I was 110% sure he was dead when he met Leia.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh no, it's over. What they did though with that shot is they let you stick around long enough to have denial about the situation, and then you kill him at the perfect moment.
Sure.
Like, it just had really good pacing, because you had kind of had this look into Kylo like he's teased by the light side, and he can kind of feel like he's remorseful a little bit. And then he talks to his dad a little bit, and they have a good conversation. And he's about to actually give in. It looks like he was sincere, too. It doesn't look like it was a plot. Mm-hmm. It looks like he was sincerely like, just take this. We'll figure it out as we go. And then it just kind of, the sun comes down. You can see it coming, but still, they let you linger long enough to think like, nah, Han's not going to die. He always gets out of it. It was good. It was definitely a good job.
This is random, but I was thinking about another criticism people I've seen levy against it is Captain Phasma was a throwaway character. Why were they in the advertisement so much? Clearly, this is my theory on Captain Phasma. This is going to be Finn's villain for the movie. This is his Boba Fett to his Han.
It's his Boba Fett.
I assume what's going to happen is she, out of spite, because clearly this stormtrooper who was under her command defected, and not only that, then used her to blow up the Starkiller base. I assume she's going to kind of have a vendetta, and that's going to be their thing, as she's going to be chasing him for the trilogy. And I assume he'll
totally
grow through that and kind of get more developed as a character and stuff.
Boba Fett wasn't anything, but he was marketed very heavily.
Yeah.
Like, we have to get through, like, not every character needs 15 minutes.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, we only have a certain amount of time, and Phasma is just a cool stormtrooper.
I don't know what people expected. I thought it was a fine character. Clearly, you can tell she's in charge of her regiment. She really, really is authoritarian. She wants to make sure they're doing their job, and she feels responsible when they don't. That's the character, and then it'll continue in the next movie. I don't know what people expected. Yeah. Clearly, she's proficient. She's in charge of the stormtroopers. Why wouldn't she be? The
only person that has made any case besides she wasn't used a lot was she shouldn't have given in so quickly. But like, I don't know her character well enough to say that she wouldn't have.
She had a gun to her head.
She should be the most, like, you know, you're gonna have to kill me to not take this sort of. But what if she's all about the First Order, but also like, nah, I'm not gonna die for this right now. Like, this isn't part of the ultimate goal. Like, we did what we had to do with the base. Like, we got rid of the Republic. We don't need this anymore. I'm more valuable alive. Like, I don't see how you couldn't justify that in your head just within what you got. But some people just can't. Some people are upset about it. I don't understand it.
The final lightsaber fight with Kylo and Rey.
Kylo, Finn, and Rey.
Yeah, I thought that was really good. That did what I think the prequels lacked me giving a shit about the characters in the lightsaber fights. If you compare it to, let's say, the final fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith, where they're flipping around and doing stuff like, they're flipping and stuff,
so
but like, I don't
acrobatic.
give a shit. Yeah. And I think that part of the problem with some of the prequel fights is they look way too choreographed. It looks like they're doing a dance. Like, you can tell they know what the other is about to do, whereas in this, it felt like a real sword fight. It was still cool to watch, but it felt like these two people are actually trying to murder each other with these laser sticks, you know?
It had much more of a, instead of like a kung fu movie, it had like a Crusades movie feel to it, where it was just like, they're just swinging really hard to try to kill the other person, and it was like both of them you feared for both of their safeties, because you don't want her to kill Kylo because he's cool and you want him to stick around, and you certainly don't want him to kill Rey because she's the good guy. But they both get kind of dinged up a little bit, and she's obviously a little better at it. And some people are pissed off that she shouldn't be good at that too, but she was clearly fine with knocking people out with the bow staff, I don't understand how she wouldn't be good with other melee weapons.
Yeah,
it was totally fine with me. She wasn't like she was doing like backflips and shit. She was just defending herself and parrying. It was standard sword fight, and he wasn't super good at it.
No, I'd assume what it is one, the staff thing. Two, clearly she has some sort of background we're unaware of. Even if she was a little kid, I think my guess is going to be she was one of the youngling students of Luke.
I agree.
And
that's what I think. And I don't necessarily know if she is a Skywalker or not.
Yeah.
I think she might. I think a better reveal is that she's not a Skywalker, not related, but she is definitely Force sensitive and maybe, the new balance.
Sure.
I don't know. I thought it was very good though, and this is a good time to talk about Kylo's lightsaber. That was so much cooler in the movies. Because they gave you time with it, obviously, that you wouldn't get in the trailers, which makes sense. But it crackles and it's clearly unstable and homemade. And he actually used the hilt thing to burn Finn a little bit, which was cool. I also like that it doesn't have the prequel sort of like it just slices the shit out of everything. It kind of burns and hits things.
I always kind of assumed that's how lightsabers were supposed to work anyway. The prequels, when they made lightsabers so powerful they could basically go through anything, it kind of lessened their impact, I think. It makes more sense for them to kind of... I mean, it burns stuff, but it should kind of hit stuff, too. It should kind of bounce. Because I've always understood that lightsabers, when they hit each other, they basically repel, and that's why when they lock lightsabers, they kind of have to push on each other because they're trying to push each other apart. I don't know. I thought the lightsaber was good. I do have criticisms, though, of the movie. Firstly, while the practical effects were great and numerous...
I knew you were going to say this. There was only 2 instances that I really hated the CGI.
It might be the same, too.
I'm assuming it is.
First of all, the Emperor of the series, Grand Leader Snoke, looks awful. He looks really bad.
I don't know about awful. I think it's because he was humongous. I think in action it'll look a lot better, like when he is normal sized and not just this giant hologram. But I agree, he looks off. But I do think in like cloaked in person in scenes with other characters, it won't be as weird.
Maybe
because we only ever see him like kind of. It's a straight on shot of just him.
We'll have to
or
see.
Or a very far away shot. So I think it'll look better. Just blown up, though, it did not look good.
No, we'll have to see what happens in the next one. Hopefully they get that tightened up by the time the next movie comes out. Because right now it is not convincing to me at all. It's bad.
And the other one's Maz, clearly.
Yeah. I don't know why in this scene full of characters and beautiful, creations that they clearly took time and effort to build, they would take the main character in that scene and make her CG. And this character design isn't even like that crazy where it had to be done CG. You might have to change the proportions a bit, but you could have kind of a tiny alien like that with the eye things. And you could do some of it CG. You could make like the eye effect CG if you need to.
Yeah. You know what I was surprised about? I kind of expected, like when I saw her first, like it was kind of she was in the cantina, the new cantina, which, by the way, the new cantina music was pretty good. Not as memorable, because it's not as much of an earbug. But I like that it was different but similar.
Yeah.
But I kind of thought at first, like, it was kind of a further shot, and there was other things around her. It looked okay the first time you kind of see her, and then it zooms in on her face, and you're like... but I thought we were going to get kind of like a Schmeagol sort of thing. Because Schmeagol still kind of holds up.
I guess.
Because I think he's gray, and the grayscale works, and I think it's a part of the setting... And he kind of always looks moist because it's just rainy and shit. But she was kind of... she definitely was out of place in that scene with all the other practical... Like I don't know. There were some really, really cool aliens in there.
Yeah.
And some droids and stuff. And yeah, she just kind of fell out of place. I don't know if putting more CG characters in there to balance it would have been... like behooved them. Even though I don't necessarily want that. But I think it would have made her feel less... I don't know, unique. Which made you kind of think, oh, that's CG for sure.
Maybe. I also don't think I don't know who played her, but I don't think the performance was that good, which is weird because it seems like a character that should be pretty important. I mean, she tells Rey about the Force and like talks, and it's supposed to be kind of a wise character. I would almost say almost like a sort of almost a Yoda, but not like a wise Yoda, sort of wise and more of a colloquial, I run a bar, I've seen a lot of shit kind of way.
I'm surprised they didn't have a puppeteer thing going on.
Yeah, I don't know what
and then CG the articulation of the face, and then just let the body and head be mostly
Sure.
puppeteer.
I don't know why they don't do
I thought
more...
that was going to work.
I don't know why they don't do more of a mix of stuff like that where you have part puppet, part CG, because I think you could do some really cool stuff with that, but no,
Absolutely.
just all CG.
Yeah. I didn't hate her as much as I thought I would after a little bit. Like I thought, oh, this is going to be bad. But I think cutting away and having that little Rey hallucination moment was a good break. And then she's gone pretty quickly, but it was I hope the next time we see her, and I assume we are, I hope they do a little bit, like just put her in a cloak or something, cover it up a little bit.
Sure. Did you notice the voices that were in Rey's journey, whatever sequence where she kind of had that vision?
Some of them sounded familiar, but I couldn't place them.
Ewan McGregor came back and actually recorded new voice for this as Obi-Wan.
Really?
Yeah, so that's cool.
Nice.
It had her, I think it was him, he shouted like Rey or something, like he was calling to her.
Yeah.
They also put
they got a lot of like random cameos that they don't show their faces, but they're there.
Yeah.
I think just everyone wants to be in Star Wars, which I get.
It was, I don't know, I thought that sequence was pretty good.
It definitely had a similar to Luke.
Yeah.
When he did his Vision Quest thing, I thought that was neat, and I like that it was similar but definitely revamped. And we're definitely getting a lot of footage from the sequel.
Yeah.
It looked like, and like the two sequels coming up. Also, by the way, did you notice that Luke's monologue not in this film? Definitely, it's got to be from 8, right?
Well, I mean, that was literally a line he said in I think it was Return of the Jedi.
Right, I know.
But it wouldn't surprise me if he repeated it in the next one. I don't know. I don't know. It was good. One other criticism, again, kind of has to do with the CG. The Millennium Falcon, when it's flying in CG, I have no problem with the model or anything. It actually looks pretty good. Like, if you showed me a still shot of that, I wouldn't necessarily be able to tell if it was, a model or the CG. But the way it flies around, something about CG, when you have moving objects, they can never get the physics quite right. It always feels a little cartoony. It looks
better in fast cut shots where they cut in and out of the interior.
Yeah.
And the only time I thought it looked really, really cool was when she kind of did that turn off the engines, flip, let Finn shoot the thing. But yeah, I didn't. You're right. There were some scenes where I thought like, I actually literally thought, like, I'm amazed that thing can fly like this.
Yeah, and you could argue, oh, it's Star Wars physics, it's fine.
But it's fine. Like, it's not a big deal, but it is a nitpick that I think is valid.
Yeah.
It didn't take me out of it.
No, other than that, I don't think I mean, it wasn't, like, amazing. There's nothing new here that, like, is mind-blowing. It's just, it was a solid film. They basically wanted to do almost a soft reboot where if you had never seen Star Wars, you could watch this and get it. Almost like a Jurassic World, but done correctly. It's kind of a retread of the original concept, definitely. It takes, I mean, there are scenes, you can chart out exactly this and A New Hope together. And
you know what I would akin this to the very first Matt Smith episode
of Doctor Who,
where you immediately understand how the show and the universe works, even if you've never seen any of it, and you also like it. It's for new people.
Yeah,
because it's been 30 years. So I mean, it makes sense that you would have all these, but also enough callbacks to people that really enjoy the films, that, and it has enough new richness to it and new information that you're still like, you have something to nibble on, even if you've already been there. I really, to the testament of the film, the one of the best things you can do as a director and just people that put effort into film is if you make me not want it to end, you did a really good job, and I didn't want it to end yet. So that means it was a very good like, I've gone out of films and been like, okay, I'm satisfied. I'm not satisfied. I would like more, please. And that's good. That's a really good thing. And I thought, like, near the end that we weren't going to get to see Luke at all. I thought maybe they'd tease it a little bit, like, and the next time would be the journey towards Luke. But at the end, we get to see Luke and Rey together briefly, and he doesn't really say anything at all. But they have this neat shot and this neat moment where she's kind of like handing him the lightsaber in kind of a, we need you way.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was cool. And it just, all it made me want is, I want more, please. Can we hurry up?
Yeah, it was good. It was a fun movie. I think next time they have to forge some new ground, because the thing that I can say about this movie, again, sort of a negative, there are no scenes in this movie that I can specifically remember as unique to this movie. Like, when you think about
The
New Hope,
stormtrooper with the melee combat.
well, I guess, but I'm talking about
and
set.
then
I'm
the
talking about set
perspective-
pieces, because when you think like Return of the Jedi, there's tons of scenes you can think of. You can think of the Hoth battle. You can think of the scene with Vader and Luke. When you think of Return of the Jedi, even though it's just okay, you can think of the forest scene with all the Ewoks or the speeder bike chases. They all have sort of imagery that's specific to that film, whereas this one, it borrowed so much imagery from New Hope. There's no scene that I can think of that stood out as, oh, this is the scene from The Force Awakens, you know? The only scene that was unlike anything really from a Star Wars was when those monsters got loose on Han's ship, and that was sort of just a detour. That was the most J.J. Abrams scene in the movie for me. It felt very much like a J.J. Abrams movie at that point. Also, those monsters were a little silly, but it's Star Wars, so it was fine. But yeah, it didn't have a unique identity in the sense that there was any set pieces that weren't kind of already Star Wars tropes.
Well, that scene with the monsters, that was kind of a detour into what's Han been up to.
Yeah.
So I was okay. Like, it served the plot. It wasn't just superfluous.
No, I know. It showed
that's fine.
what he's been off doing, and he's been having his own adventures.
No.
So that's fine.
And I agree, they were silly, but I think that's kind of the point, because Han and Chewie are silly.
Yeah.
And so, like, it was just sucking on the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon, and then gets ripped apart by Lightspeed, which was hilarious.
Somehow, apparently, going to Lightspeed and standing right behind a craft that will go into Lightspeed doesn't kill you. That's shocking to me. It just kind of knocked those people back.
Lightspeed happens in front of the craft, Hugo.
But the afterburner thing on the,
it's not the burner that makes them go Lightspeed. It's the drive.
No, I understand. I genuinely thought they were going to go into hyperspeed, and
I thought it was going to make the thing implode.
I thought so too, because they even said, we're going to go into Lightspeed in the hangar. Can you do that? And he goes, I don't know. I thought something cool was going to happen. Like, I thought everything was going to blow up or implode or atomize.
It would have been interesting. It would have been very interesting. I don't know. Han and Chewie were very cool. I don't know. I just kind of liked how all the characters got time.
Yeah.
Even though I want more of Poe, all the characters got enough time, and I think this is a good appetizer for the main course that's going to be the next film. So
yeah.
And I'm looking forward to Rogue One now. Now that I know that, like, the story is solid. I was worried it was just going to be like the Jurassic World of Star Wars movies, but it wasn't. It was good. What rating do you give this?
I'd give it. I'd probably give it an 8.5, maybe 8.5, maybe a 9 on a good day, because
I was gonna say that I was 8.5, 9 on a good day, because if I'm really into Star Wars and I have the 3 originals and this movie all in my library at home, there are days where I will pick this over any of them.
Sure.
Absolutely. And I've only seen it once, but I can definitely see myself picking this over Empire if I'm in the mood for Star Wars. That said, Empire is clearly the better film, but it's still a really, really good. And I'm surprised I'm rating it so. I expected a 7 when I went into the theater yesterday, and I came out pleasantly surprised and excited for more. And now I'm not mad about all the marketing.
Yeah, honestly, I probably would have been happy with a 7 after the prequels. I would have been like, okay,
I would have been happy and trepidatious moving forward. But now I think we're on an upward trajectory, because I think whatever's happening next, I think we're going to be all very surprised by how not mirrored it is to Empire.
Yeah. I mean, this movie's doing so well, too. Did you see worldwide? Did you see how much money this made
broke
the first weekend?
Every record. They put what? They bought it for $4 billion, you said?
Yeah, do you know how much they made the first weekend worldwide? $500 million.
Holy fuck, that's a lot of cash.
Yeah.
I could use a little bit of that.
Yeah, that's insanity.
Just a tiny bit.
Not to mention
just buy all of their merchandise with that money.
I know. You know how much money they're going to make on kids buying Kylo Ren shit now? And BB-8 stuff? We didn't talk about BB-8, by the way. BB-8
is easily the best droid in any Star Wars film ever.
Basically, if George Lucas was trying to do a Jar Jar type deal where it's like it's a thing that kids will enjoy, but it's also funny, this is how you do that correctly and not Jar Jar.
The best BB-8 moment was the lighter thumbs up.
Yeah, that was funny.
Oh my goodness. And he's so good. BB-8, I thought he was going to be like this sort of like prop that they use to make jokes happen and like have kids stick around. But he genuinely served the plot. He was a good sidekick, and he had good character moments because he can kind of emote a little more than the other. Like R2 had been the most like emotional of the droids because obviously C-3PO is just worried all the time. And that's kind of his thing. Yeah. He's kind of like a worried old puppy.
Solid cameo by his C-3PO in this movie too. Still cock blocking Han Solo.
I know. I love that he's always cock blocking. But BB-8 he could kind of like give you that sideways puppy look. He can also like they have a conversation and with Finn where he's like trying to talk BB-8 into telling Rey like where the base is because Rey thinks that Finn is part of the Resistance and he's not. He's an ex-stormtrooper, and they have this really cool just moment. I just love that. It was very good. I was worried that he was gonna be just, joke foil.
I think that lies at the heart of why this works and the prequels don't. Beyond the fact that the writing is just clearly better. Sorry, George.
Yeah.
You care about the characters. Better. The characters are likable, and that's what Star Wars is. It's characters on an adventure. And while there may have been sort of an adventure in the prequels, I didn't give a shit about the characters, so I don't know. But yeah.
The only one I gave a shit about was Obi-Wan, and that's because Ewan McGregor is Bae.
Yeah, true. So I think that's it. Do we have anything else to say? We rambled for
I could talk about this for 3 hours, so it doesn't matter. I think that's good. I want to know what everybody else thinks of it.
Yeah,
because it is kind of polarizing. I don't think anyone hates the movie.
I've definitely seen people who hate it, but I think they had. I don't know what they expected. I think some people. The problem is some people who are Star Wars fans, especially when they saw it very young, they've built up Star Wars in their head to be something it's never been, which is like this amazing best movies ever made. And don't get me wrong, I love Star Wars, and Empire's a great movie, and some of the other ones are too.
They're not the best movies ever made. Like that's filled with camp from start to finish.
Oh yeah. Star Wars are fun adventure movies. That's all they've ever been. And then one time they made an amazing movie and then kind of a lackluster sequel and then terrible prequels. Star Wars is a fun action space fantasy movie, and that's what this movie was, and that's why it worked. So I don't know if anyone hates this movie, absolutely hates it. I love to know why. And I'm assuming maybe some of I could understand people knocking points off because they thought it was way too close to the plot of New Hope. But I don't know. It worked for me. I understand if it didn't work for you, but it worked for me. So
I'd be surprised if anyone gave it lower than a 6, honestly.
Even like if you hate the plot, though, like it was the technical aspects. It was shot well. It was well
shot, well acted. The pacing was really, really great. Like all the big moments felt big. The only, a nitpick could be they gave away Kylo's like true identity really quickly.
But see, I'm glad they did that because otherwise people would say, "Oh, they're just trying to repeat the reveal of Luke, I am your father." They're just trying to do another one of those. Here it was just casually mentioned, which is good. That's fine.
Like everyone knew, and that was fine with me. Like I think maybe they could have held on to it a little bit longer, just like when Han and Leia are in the same, room together and they kind of talk about it, and then the other character's like, "Oh, okay, that sucks," but it was fine with me, so I don't know. I'm very interested to see what people say. I want to know, are we missing any Easter eggs or something? We didn't really mention a ton of them.
No, but they're
all over the place. They're all over the place.
She lives in an AT-AT. I mean, it's
that was very cool. Yeah, so I really liked the whole. I don't know. Just the aesthetic of the whole film was really, really good.
It looked like Star Wars, which is something the prequels didn't have. It looked dirty. The universe looked lived in.
Yeah, that's exactly the problem with the prequels, is it just looks so clean.
Oh, also, I know we've been rambling for so long. One brief thing. People have been complaining that the politics of the universe aren't completely explained. Like, what's the relation to the First Order, and what's the relation to the Empire, but also the Resistance. If you didn't know, how it works is the New Republic is a government, but they are trying to not get involved with the First Order, which is the remnants of the Empire. A year after the end of Return of the Jedi, there was a big battle with the remnants of the Empire, with all their Star Destroyers and commanders. That was over Jakku, and that's why there's all those ships and stuff on Jakku. So only one Star Destroyer and some other stuff survived. They went off to the outer rim of the galaxy, and that's where the First Order was. And then they built up their forces again to where they are now. They have, if you notice, they only have like one Star Destroyer. That's Kylo Ren's base. And then they have some ships and stuff. Meanwhile, the New Republic has been building itself up over the last 30 years, and they don't want to directly engage the bad guys. So what they did was, General Leia said, "Okay, we still have the rebels. We'll rebrand ourselves as the Resistance. We're not officially affiliated with you, but if you funnel some resources to us, we'll be a rogue terrorist group that's taking on the First Order, and we're unaffiliated with you." That's all. Right. That's expanded universe explanation that came out in books. Like, they didn't explain it in the movie. I'd agree. They probably should have explained it a little bit in the movie.
I think it's fine if you don't, though.
It's a proxy war.
Number one is it's a money thing where you could just sell more shit. But number two is I don't need a bunch of exposition about it. We can infer it over time, and that can sort of unfold to us. Yeah. As we're there, and because we didn't know in New Hope, you don't know really the relationship between the Empire and the rebels.
Well, I mean, that's
what are they?
That's a little more straightforward because it's just
right. I know, but you don't know why the Empire wants to take them over, why they're resisting. Because again, they didn't really show any form of dominance.
Fair.
It seemed very Roman to me, where it was just like the Empire wanted to absorb all these territories and kind of have homogeny, and just other people didn't want that, and that's fine. But you didn't have to have exposition about it. You can just kind of infer it over time. I'm totally cool with that. Another analogy that you could run for the New Order is kind of like how American Republicans are. They're just moving. They're kind of splitting and moving further and further to the right. These are the most empire remnants that you could get.
Yeah, the Nazism was super hardcore in this movie. They literally did a Hail Hitler type deal. But anyway, so that's the movie for real this time. We're done, I promise.
Yeah, go watch it though.
Definitely,
again.
If you're a Star Wars fan and you weren't sure, definitely go see it. It's worth your time. At worst, you're gonna come out saying it was kind of a retread, but it was a good retread. At best, you're gonna say,
why did you watch this if you hadn't seen it already? That was dumb.
Yeah, so, but thanks everyone. You can always check us out on Twitter at @TheRealUnpop.
You can always subscribe, and you can check out all of the other things. We're going to be reviewing all of the Star Wars films and all of the comic book films and all the superhero films moving forward. It's just kind of a thing we love, and there's tons next year.
Yeah, I think the next big one is Deadpool.
Yep, February 12th.
You can always donate to our Patreon campaign if you want to help support the show. Other than that, until next time, I am Darth Hugo.
And I am Kylo Jake.
And this has been Unpopular Culture.